So, at this stage, I was a modern. So, this Christian fellow, El Greco, excited me, but I was still a modern. I was living in a different generation from El Greco. And then El Greco really couldn't. El Greco was too sophisticated a painter for me to take on board as a young fellow. His drawing was, which is very quite remote from nature. I mean, there might be 12 heads in a figure by El Greco instead of 8. He drew very freely, and he had this wonderful arabesque, this wonderful soaring line, and it was quite abstract. And then the way he contrasted the earthly with the heavenly, and he could be quite realistic. He was a great portrait painter as well as being a painter of the sacred theme. And so he could combine realism, a certain realism, with his intellectual figuration of the marvelous. But this was too great for me. So I discovered the Italian Renaissance. And by the time I was 17, I knew every minor master in the pantheon of Italian painting. I'm sure I was a bore, you know, but there. So this Italian painting especially the primitives, the early Italian painters, they convinced me of the beauty of Catholicism. So the arguments with my mother heated up. But there it was. I was no longer totally in sympathy with the moderns. That was the end of the dominance of my mother's contemporaneity. My mother was a great reader, and so she was a powerful one to argue with. And then the other great influence, which I discovered with the English master at school, the Reverend R.E.C. Brown, was T.S. Eliot. And of course, T.S. Eliot really shook up English poetry. Shook up the whole late 19th century pastoral tradition, and gave us gave us the dirty streets of London. And, but he, of course, also gave a larger picture of the relation of the secular with the sacred. And so between T.S. Eliot and El Greco, my fate was sealed. My mother died in 1958, and it took me another 5 years to become a Catholic. And you see, what was born into me with this experience of Italian painting and so on, and falling in love with the work of El Greco, what was born into me was that art is born of ritual. That fundamentally what happens in ritual, in the religious ritual, is the same as what happens in painting and novels and films and music and so on. That everything is brought together. All the contradictions in our nature, all our sensuality, our lust, our love of pleasure, all our aspirations, our desires, our desire for infinity, our imagination, our intellectuality, our sensuality, our you name it. The imagination gathers these things and makes wholes out of them. Wholes that allow us to become full men.